Hi, and thank you for dropping by. I'm going to share with you some YouGov research on whether we can better communicate to customers the risks involved when they invest. Now, this follows 4 years of finance professionals volunteering to review what is available now, how we might improve that, testing those improvements, and then redesigning and making further refinements. We live in an age where we have the ability to take in a lot of information all at the same time. Perhaps it's news, sport, or business. Now, we are going to present our findings in a similar way to see if we can get across a huge volume of work in a short period of time. It's not a recommendation to communicate in this way with customers. However, it might make us think of the challenges faced in getting across all the risks succinctly of volatility, capital loss, past, future, and actual performance. Now, what's your preferred way of communication? Well, if you prefer audio, just listen to the commentary. If you just want the headlines, there are banners at the bottom of the screen. In addition, if you want a bit more detail, we have a summary presentation in the top right, and there's a huge volume of reading in the notes below to this video. Finally, if you have any notes, comments or questions, please put them in the comment boxes below. Firstly, particular thanks to the other working group members, Belinda, Bruce, Gareth and Rob. Let's have a look at the customer groups we used for our research. We split customers between experienced, passive, future and reluctant investors, and we are particularly interested in the future and reluctant investors who may not have access to or be able to afford financial advice. Now, you can see the descriptions on the left hand side. Freeze the video at any time if you want to see more detail. We tested 6 key statements or hypotheses. They are at the bottom of the screen. Again, freeze the screen if you like, but I'll go through them all in due course. So what might customers see when they invest? Well, if they are lucky and typically advised, they see a key features illustration. These were introduced over a quarter of a century ago and unfortunately have been pretty unchanged since then, despite all the improvements in computing power and stochastic modelling. With various deterministic figures shown, there is no indication of a likelihood of these happening. In 2018, European PRIPS legislation introduced key information documents, or KIDs. They aimed to gradually standardise disclosure across products and funds over the whole of Europe. This followed their thorough research on what a customer will want to see to feel more engaged and understand the risks involved in investing. The core key information document is more visually engaging with 3 pages of standard format questions and answers. And the aim is to allow comparisons between products and funds to be made easily. And this is what we tested in the research. We took PRIPS KID documents for 2 different funds to see if customers could understand the various vital risks of investing. But not only did we do that, we also tested our own simpler disclosure, designed in line with the FCA Smarter Communication Guidelines. Here we covered volatility, risk of capital loss, accessibility, and potential outcomes with some simple infographics and more minimal commentary. Again, we tested versions of these documents with customers to see if they better understood the risks. Here we have possible outcomes for an investor. Low, medium and high, with low and high having a probability of 1 in 20. We put these in front of a customer, asked them to compare 2 funds with a set of exam type questions to see if they understood what the outcomes might be. Looking at volatility, what could the investment journey look like? The more green and red faces, the more volatile the likely fund performance over the next 12 months. Again, YouGov showed funds with two different sets of results to see if a customer would be able to understand which is a more volatile fund. A common question that an investor might ask is, what can I lose when I invest? How bad could it get? Here we show a 1 in 20 chance of a potential loss over various time periods. Finally, we looked at accessibility. Can I get my money out easily? Here we show a simple bar indicator to compare vehicles. Green could be a current account with no potential loss and readily available funds. With red, a potential delay with a capital loss or a penalty, perhaps a property fund, perhaps a structured product. YouGov took the PRIPS KID documents and also our suggested new formats to compare two different funds and then ask 6 key questions of each customer in the survey. Which fund is likely to give high profit and loss? Which one will give a lower return on average? Which fund has a greater potential loss? More variability in returns? And which fund gives better access? Let's have a look at the results of the 6 tests. Test 1. Experienced self-investors would have no trouble understanding risk with the current PRIPS KID documents. Indeed, this test is passed. The exam scores are 79%, or 5 out of the 6 questions were answered correctly by experienced investors. They would indeed be the least responsive to our alternative new disclosure. Test 2. PRIPS KID documents will not be so effective at communicating key information. And indeed, that was proven correct. 53% of respondents for the reluctant investors answered that they did not know the answers to our exam questions. Maybe they're nervous about talking about investing, but clearly they feel confused. The third test was that less experienced investors need simpler documents that are more engaging. And indeed, this test was proven as well. 66% preferred our simpler disclosure. They thought it more visually engaging and appealing, and there is definite appetite if a desire is to appeal to non-investor types that are perhaps excluded from advice at the moment. Moving on to test 4. Existing PRIPS KID documents do not clearly highlight the risks. Again, this test was proven as the PRIPS KID disclosures were worryingly low. Just 13%, that's 1 in 7, 1 in 8 people, got all the exam questions right. And the lower the experience, I'm afraid the lower the scores. Only 1 in 4 experienced investors got all questions correct. And I'm afraid only 1 in 10 of reluctant investors proved that they understood all the risks involved in investing. Moving on to test 5. The documents that are simple and easier to access will improve understanding and decision making. This test is not proven. The scores did not improve the new disclosure. Looking at simple infographics and comparing funds alone was not enough. This means that there has to be a hybrid approach or a more immersive approach than just doing the best we can on infographics and short commentary alone. We designed, we tested, we then redesigned and retested different disclosure styles and had the same results. However, during the account term, new investment performance graphics proved very popular. This is an example of the amount invested against the total account value over time. This scored very positively, as at the moment there are a number of customers who just don't receive enough information during the investment term other than just the account value. Here is another example to see if a customer is meeting their goal. Simply done, simple graphics. It shows if a product made a positive return, in this case 3.71% per annum. It compares it to see if they have beaten inflation. It compares it against general savings accounts and also the stock market. Finally, test 6, the test that customers do not understand the different types of risk on their investment products. And indeed, we found that half the total population could not distinguish the risks and returns. 1 in 4 experienced and engaged investors could not, and 40%, 4 out of 10, of reluctant investors were unable to answer the questions correctly. Before we move to the summary, here are some key references. Please look at these in the notes if you wish. So in summary, customers do not understand the disclosure available on its own. They need something more compelling and more involving. On the left-hand side, for example, is a more immersive digital example for a pension statement on how your funds may grow in the future. Over half the population do not understand the risks and returns on their investments. We hope we can do more going forward, and it is clear that more needs to be done. Our call to action is for regulators, providers and all stakeholders of financial services to evolve communication using digital technology for a variety of preferred customer mediums. Our aim must be to focus on public comprehension and education, tailoring the needs of different customer types and segments as we have shown in this video. That's all for today. We hope you've enjoyed this attempt at conveying a lot of complex information in a rather different fashion. Your thoughts are most welcome in the comments below. Thank you and goodbye.